Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Joining me now is Earl Phalen, CEO and President of KC Scholars. Earl, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Brittany. Thank you for having me today.
Before we dive into a really important conversation, can you just give us some background here? What is KC Scholars?
Sure, Casey Scholars is a nonprofit organization based in Kansas City, and we're focused on helping young people make sure that money is no obstacle for them to get to college and through college. So we give $50,000 scholarships to 775 students every year, about $38 million worth of scholarships. And we support our scholars as they choose the right college, they choose the right major, and then they get to college and obviously a great job afterwards.
That's really incredible work. Without scholarships, college wouldn't have become a reality for me personally, so I appreciate your work. And student loan payments officially resume in October after an over 3-year pause. So how is this
Yes.
going to impact borrowers?
The debt crisis is going to, or the reinstatement of the debt payments is going to have a big impact on borrowers. Right now, throughout the United States, there's $1.75 trillion of student debt out there. So the average student is going to have to start to pay, or the average graduate is going to have to start to pay $200 to $300 a month. And when you think about that additional monthly cost, in addition to rising gas prices, higher housing costs, it's going to put a lot of stress on many Americans.
We've covered extensively top issues facing Americans, especially as we go through the next election, and the economy is always top of mind. And I want to read a stat from the Education Data Initiative, what they found. Quote, Black and African American college graduates owe an average of $25,000 more in student loan debt than white college graduates. How are borrowers of color disproportionately impacted as these payments are reinstated?
Well, they're disproportionately impacted because many black students have to assume debt to go to college. So in some other households, middle income and upper income, parents are contributing to the tuition, or parents are paying the full tuition. But for black students and for other low income students, Latinx and white low income students, they have to assume debt if they're going to get to and through college. And that's why you need great programs like KC Scholars, that most of our students are coming out debt free because they're getting $50,000 over the course of their education. And we're encouraging them to go to schools either in Kansas or Missouri.
Debt free sounds really like the dream, but that's not a reality for a lot of students and a lot of borrowers, especially younger ones. So, what's the solution here? What do you think can be done to close this racial wealth gap?
Well, I think there's a few things we have to look at. When you see somebody like Harvard with a $40 billion endowment, you see places like Yale that has a $30 billion endowment, and Princeton with $27 billion, but yet tuition is rising every year. That model is broken. They have fixed costs in the facilities. They have fixed costs in their faculty. Those are their major costs. There's no reason for this continued increase in the price of tuition. I think that's one side of it. I think the other piece is I've looked at states like Indiana. They have a great program, and actually 16 other states have this program. It's a 21st Century Scholars Program, which says if you're low or moderate income, we will pay for your in-state tuition. I mean, so if you go to a state school, you have no tuition. Now you still have to figure out the room and board. That might be $8,000 or $10,000 a year, but we'll take care of the tuition part. So we've got to look at creative programs. There's so much intelligence in all of our communities that income shouldn't be the barrier. And candidly, what we're seeing now is a 50-50 rule. 50% of high school seniors are saying, I don't want to go to college. I don't think the return on investment is worth it for me. And they're choosing to go to great jobs. And that's why we started a program here that focuses on, if you want to transition to a job that pays $50,000 to $100,000 a year, we can put you through a 6-month program and help you get there.
What do you think that the Biden administration, the Department of Education can do here? Because the Supreme Court, as we all remember back in June, shot down President Biden's sweeping student loan forgiveness
Yes.
plan. So is there anything that they could do specifically, lawmakers, the Biden administration, Department of Education, can do to really ease this impact on borrowers of color?
Yeah, I think one, you need to put pressure on the institutions to rationalize and to reduce and honestly offer a good education at a reasonable cost. I think that's one. Second, legislators should be looking at programs like the 21st Century Program in Indiana that basically allows a lower moderate income student to get to college and get to and through college without any cost to it. And then third, I think we have to face the reality that half of the kids in America are saying college is not for them. So I hope that the market pushes a little bit on universities. We're seeing some declining enrollment, and that's going to force universities as well to look at themselves and say, is the return worth it? Is it worth it for me to go as a Black student to go to college and assume $52,000 of debt? Well, am I getting a good job? Do I get a job that allows me to pay that off? So I think those are some of the things that you have to look at.
This has been somewhat of a lightning rod issue in recent years. Some Americans are feeling crippled by student loans. Other
Yes.
Americans who maybe didn't go to college or didn't take out as many loans, maybe modified their dream when it comes to higher education, say, that you took out that loan, now it's on you to pay that back. And so it's really been a divisive issue here. So when it comes to student loans, do you think there's anything missing from the national conversation?
Well, I think what's missing from the national conversation is yes, the students did assume that debt. But when I look around many communities, I'm seeing companies that are short 500 staff, health systems that are short 1,500 staff. And I think we're doing a disservice to our local and national economies if we don't invest in our students. So finding a way for loan forgiveness is going to be critical. I do think it should be on the legislators to find a way to make it affordable. And I do think it should be on the administration to push universities to get the cost down, because more and more businesses need the talent that used to be coming out and flourishing from universities.
What do you think is the number one way to make colleges more affordable? Because when you're looking at colleges, these price tags are really shocking and staggering. And for the average American, you really have to say this tuition is going to be a major, if not the major factor in my college decision.
Yeah, I think students should stop going, and I think the market allows for that right now. We created a program called Great Jobs KC because we know in less than 6 months you can get some essential skills training, you can get some occupational skills training. You want to be HVAC, you want to be a welder, you want to be a phlebotomist, and these are jobs that are paying $50,000 to $100,000. We have commercial drivers, folks who got their commercial driver's license coming out making $110,000 plus benefits. I think we need to put pressure and have the market forces have universities look at themselves and get their cost to a rational place. And I also think there needs to be more pressure on the universities as well. You can't have a $40 billion endowment. That's just being greedy. You can't have a $40 billion endowment and not pay local property taxes. That seems to be upside down. So we need to have some legislation that pushes universities to stop hoarding wealth.
So do you think a college degree is really necessary anymore? Is that what you're saying?
I think twofold. I think that the college degree is still statistically gives you a better financial long-term picture. But the gap is closing, and particularly when students who are graduating are not always getting great jobs. And so they're getting jobs in the $30,000. There is no reason to go to college if you're going to come out, unless you're in social services. If you're in social services, that's different. But if you're going to college, the value proposition is different. And I think the Americans aren't tuned into the reality, which is 50%, it's 50-50. 50% of high school students do not choose college, they choose career. And 50% of those who choose college are dropping out by the end of the sophomore year. And the number one reason is financial burden and finances. So I think we have to look at this differently and have to start to encourage students to get a job. If you can come out of high school and get a really good paying job, save some money. And then if you want to go back to college and get your degree, go ahead and do that.
That's really great advice. Do you think, what can society do to really remove that stigma of college is necessary, you need to get that degree to get a good job? Because like you're saying, they're coming out and getting jobs that 4 years plus, that all that tuition to just get a $30,000 job, the return on investment there, just doing the math, crunching the numbers there, isn't that great?
I think you hit it. I think we've just got to be honest and say what we want for, Mr. Coffin used to say, hey, the best social program in the United States is a good paying job plus benefits. And there are definitely different ways to get there. For some, if you get that credential, you can get into a good job that allows you to take care of yourself and your loved ones, and there shouldn't be any stigma around that. And for some, getting the degree is the right pathway for them, but that also needs to lead to a great job if it's going to be worth it. So I think the counselors, I think we as community members and as citizens, we need to honor the fact that if you're able to get a good job and take care of yourself and your loved ones, you're a great American.
This is great advice for people who might be looking forward to next steps after high school. But let's say you decided to go the college route and now payments are resuming. What is your advice to borrowers as those payments come up again in October?
Well, I think the biggest cost that a lot of borrowers have is their housing cost. And so unfortunately, you may have had a roommate in college and you may need to take a roommate again. And for some, it's going home and being with mom and dad. For others, it's rooming with a buddy. And I think you have to look at your number one cost and get that down. So that's a critical part. I mean, one of the things we're doing at Great Jobs is we're trying to knock down those barriers. So housing, transportation, childcare, those are the major barriers that borrowers are facing. And so we try to, one, help you get a better job so that you can take care of yourself and your loved ones. But also we're trying to work with community agencies to get those barriers down, to help with transportation. Transportation system here is free in Kansas City. And to help with housing, there's a lot of great programs that will help you get a first-time home buyer and be a first-time home buyer. So we're looking at all those different ways. But I think housing is the number one expense, so you're probably going to have to do something around the housing.
There's no shame in moving back in with mom. I did it myself right out of college. Earl Phalen, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your insights.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.